Hey, welcome back to The Ground Truth with Erik Jensen here, everybody. I wanted to record a follow-up video to my original Musqueam reporting that I did last week. And obviously there's been a lot of things being talked about and said in the news. And so I think it's really important for all of us as Canadians to really understand what's going on around us. So today I'm going to go through a couple quotes that have happened from several of our beloved politicians. And then I'm going to literally show you where you can find the agreement for yourself. And I'm actually going to take you through the process of actually feeding that agreement into Gemini and seeing what actually is included or not included in that agreement, at least at a glance. So without further ado, let's dive in. Just to catch everybody up, if you haven't, on February 20th, the government of Canada signed an historic land agreement, a historic agreement with the Musqueam First Nation, basically giving them control over, well, not control, but the setting a framework, if you will, for a nation to nation sort of relationship that could be developed between the Musqueam Nation and Canada. And basically said for most of Metro Vancouver, that is traditional Musqueam territory. So, obviously there's a lot of people that are pretty upset about it, and feel like it's inappropriate, it's heavy-handed, whatever the case may be. So rather than apply my own take on it, which I will, well, I'm sure you'll figure it out eventually here, but let's just go through some of the details and go through some of the things that have and haven't been said. So let's first start with this Business in Vancouver article or Business Intelligence for BC article. And I'm going to actually read it verbatim for everybody because I think it was a really well-written article and quite interesting. So politicians continue to scramble for cover Tuesday over the fallout of a new federal Aboriginal title agreement that covers most of Metro Vancouver. Premier Eby told the legislature that his claims, just 24 hours prior, of knowing nothing about the landmark deal between Ottawa and the Musqueam Indian Band were technically accurate, even after photos emerged showing he attended the signing ceremony in person on February 20th. Just to be clear, I received no briefings about the content of this agreement, no heads up from the federal government, said Eby during a grilling by interim opposition Conservative leader Trevor Halford. But his denial failed to survive the day again. And I quote, "The federal government did brief the provincial government. It was a number of weeks ago." Federal Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Rebecca Alty told CTV News. That does not match with what the Premier told the legislature. "I was glad to see the federal government working with the Musqueam people," Eby said Tuesday, "but I didn't know the content of the agreements until they were released publicly by the federal government." The opposition expressed exasperation with the Premier's creative handling of the truth. In the anxious political climate of court rulings involving private property and Aboriginal title, Halford said it was inconceivable for the Premier would have sat mutely during a signing event that affected the most densely populated area of the province, including Vancouver, Burnaby, Richmond, North Vancouver, West Vancouver, and parts of Delta. "You would expect the Premier of this province to be briefed on what event he is actually at," said Halford. "If not, we've got a way bigger problem with what's going on in that office. Ain't that the truth?" Public concern on Indigenous reconciliation is at an all-time high after the BC Supreme Court ruled in August that Aboriginal title supersedes fee simple private property in the province's legal hierarchy. And again, if you're not familiar with what that's about, that is the Cowichan land ruling that came out late last year regarding some land in Richmond. The Premier has pledged to appeal the ruling to defend private property rights, yet, oddly, expressed no concern over a new Aboriginal title agreement involving the province's most populated areas. Indigenous Relations Minister Spencer Chandra Herbert picked up the baton of denial and deflection in his ministry's estimates later Tuesday afternoon, claiming he only heard about the bilateral deal between Canada and Musqueam through the media. I mean, what a crock of shit. Anyways, critics John Rustad and Scott McInnes pushed Chandra Herbert hard over whether at any point in previous months during any other talks with Musqueam or any other conversations with Ottawa, BC, was made aware of the impending deal. No, said the minister. I reached out to the federal minister to certainly share my displeasure at learning about this through the news, Chandra Herbert said. I think we should try and proceed on a less of a surprises kind of environment. The claim brought mockery from the opposition. If I were the minister, I'd be furious with my leader, the premier, because he was in the front row at this signing agreement. Like literally Eby was in the front row of the signing agreement. He didn't bother to pick up the phone and tell the minister what was going on here? I'd be quite honest to be upset with you. Rustad zeroed in on a line in the agreement that the existence of Musqueam's unextinguished rights and title within Musqueam territory is not contingent on recognition by court declaration or any agreement. Rustad, this is a very disturbing statement to make. That is an understatement. He asked if the BC government intended to push back. We've reached out to the federal government to better understand their thinking here, said Chandra Herbert, but again, it's not our agreement, so I can't answer for what the federal government may or may not have been thinking. The information vacuum from Ottawa has also angered neighboring Squamish Nation, which said it was deeply concerned by maps that seemed to show Musqueam was able to achieve a deal on Aboriginal title that included Squamish traditional territory. Any implication that another nation's agreement could extend into Squamish territory will be challenged, Squamish Nation Councillor Chair Wilson Williams said in a statement. Squamish Nation was not consulted or meaningfully engaged by the federal government prior to the announcement of these agreements. We have formally requested an urgent meeting with federal officials to obtain full transparency of the agreements, including their scope, intent, or any implications for our territory and interests. Full transparency. Good luck to the Squamish on that one. When it comes to the BC and federal governments right now, some basic plain old honesty would be a good first step. So that's a nice cut at the end there, because isn't that the truth? It would feel, and it does feel like transparency with the federal and provincial governments here in British Columbia is just an absolute disgrace, and that is being quite charitable. Let's bounce over to this quote here, and then I'm going to dive into something. Federal Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations Rebecca Alty said in a statement posted to social media, the agreements do not affect private property. Quoted, under this agreement, Canada and Musqueam have created a path forward to negotiate Musqueam's rights and title rather than pursuing litigation in the courts, said Alty. This more collaborative approach prevents uncertainty and allows us to come to an agreement that respects the rights of Indigenous people, protects existing private property rights, and is in the best interests of British Columbians and Indigenous people. So let's pause there for a second. So what Alty is saying is that the agreement that they've signed has no issue with private property rights, and nobody should be worried about it because the agreement protects private property rights for the individual. Well, it so happens that after all of the pressure that's been put forward, the full agreement had to be published. So this is the news release. So here's the agreement, right? This is the full send agreement here. So I will start at the top here, copy that, come over here, and I'm going to hit paste. And then I'm going to scroll up to the top here. Does any language in the following protect private property rights or be simple? Oh, absence of fee simple and private property from all of that. I mean, I don't know what else to say except to say that Alty's a fucking liar. Or she's ignorant and doesn't know what her own government is signing and agreeing to. Either way, she should be removed from her position. I mean, this is a patent lie. This is gaslighting 101. I mean, no mention of third-party title. No, it focuses on Aboriginal title. Now, it does state that it's not a treaty or a land claims agreement. It states the agreement does not create, amend, define, or establish Musqueam's rights on title, but rather acts as a step towards future negotiations. So nowhere in any of this is there any sort of protection for Canadians, tax-paying Canadians. Now, the thing that comes to mind, and I wrote a letter to the mayor, to the district of the council of the district of North Vancouver, but I push us out to everybody is where does reconciliation start and stop? And I am all for reconciliation and figuring things out, but there cannot be any sort of recognition of Aboriginal rights to fee simple property. And there's a number of reasons for that, in my opinion. Number one of which is like we live in a democratic country, or at least I thought Canada was democratic. And if we live in a democratic country, that means that people should need to be able to vote for the people that are making these changes. And as Canadians, we don't get to vote for whomever is the chief of the Squamish Nation or Musqueam Nation. We like as a British Columbian, I don't have the opportunity to vote for any of those people in those positions. So that's number one. Number two is, who is now responsible for the land, right? Is it the district of North Vancouver, or like the municipalities, the province, the government, or Musqueam Nation? So if we have an issue on our land, who do we seek help from? Musqueam Nation or the district of North Van? Furthermore, who do we pay our property taxes to? If this land belongs to the Musqueam Nation, why should or why would we need to or have to pay property taxes to the district in North Vancouver? Because they no longer have any sort of jurisdiction over the land, because according to these agreements, and certainly what's been ruled in the Cowichan case, the line has been blurred. And that's the problem, right? I am calling on all of our politicians to step up and clarify what is being sought after here, because this is just lunacy of the highest order here, people. If you don't understand how important fee simple title is on land, let me try to explain it to you. Companies, people with money that can invest and help to grow our economy. Are those people with money going to invest their money on land that is questionably theirs? Or, okay, so sorry, are they going to invest A in the land? And then B, are they going to invest millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in buildings and infrastructure on that land so that they can create gizmos and gadgets, right? And that creation of gizmos and gadgets obviously translates into jobs for British Columbians and Canadians alike. I'm going to argue that like having a place where people feel secure in dispatching and dispersing their money to invest is a really good thing. Now, conversely, if there's any sort of question mark in the air or whatever else, where are investors going to invest their money? Well, I promise you, sure as fuck won't be BC at this moment in time, because why would I, as somebody, like if I had $100 million to invest in someplace, why would I take that chance, that risk that there's something screwy going on in Canada and in British Columbia specifically? Why would I not choose to invest that money rather in Alberta or somewhere in the States or Europe or somewhere else where there aren't these questions and this like just cloud of fog of uncertainty over who does or doesn't own the land? And folks, like this is a mission critical issue for us in British Columbia and Canada alike. We have to get some clarity on this. The concept that Aboriginal title can supersede and burden a property over a fee simple title is bonkers. We're already seeing property values in the Cowichan area tank because nobody can sell because the buyers are like, not sure. We've already seen businesses pull out of that area in Richmond because they're like, well, I'm not going to continue to invest in here. There's a bunch of Amazon warehouses in there. I suspect the Amazon's pulling out or will. Guys, we really gotta get serious about this. This is not an insignificant matter. And if you don't believe me or don't agree with whatever I'm saying, that's okay. But go out and educate yourself and learn the repercussions and the 50 to 100 year kind of go forward on this. There's now two really fascinating interviews with a lawyer named Tom Isaac on the Looney Hour. It's on the Steve Saretsky channel. I'll link that in the description below. I'll just link both the videos in the description below. I mean, just absolutely fantastic interviews and super, super interesting and informative. And, you know, again, I'm trying to come at this like with a pretty pragmatic and unemotional sort of basis. But again, you know, we cannot have our public leaders just blatantly lying to us. For Eby to claim he didn't know what was going on in that signing is fucking ludicrous. And then for this, yeah, Rebecca Alty, to gaslight the public. And again, I quote, under this agreement, Canada and Musqueam have created a path forward to negotiate Musqueam's rights and title rather than pursuing litigation in courts. This more collaborative approach prevents uncertainty, allows us to come to an agreement that respects the rights of Indigenous people, protects existing private property rights, and is in the best interest of British Columbians and Indigenous people. It is not in the best fucking interest of British Columbians. Let us be 100% goddamn sure of that. That is not in the best interest of British Columbians. Definitely in the best interest of Indigenous peoples, but not in the best interest of British Columbians. And I am telling you folks, if this does not get dealt with quickly, there are going to be a lot of upset people. And I hope that we can keep the emotions down and we can allow some cool heads to approach there and figure things out. In the meantime, one of the things that I'm going to start working on the side, just for myself, my own, I guess, shits and giggles, if you will, is, you know, maybe come up with some sort of framework of what, you know, a final version of reconciliation could look like. Because you know what, folks, we have been dancing around this for decades. And I, for one, am tired of it. I want one Canada. I want everybody to be Canadian. I want everybody to be treated equally. I want everybody to have the equal opportunity. I want to have everybody have access to fresh water. Everybody that lives in Canada should have access to fresh drinking water. I mean, I think that is just, you know, in a first world country, that seems like a pretty low bar to aim for. So, I mean, you know, that is kind of the underpinnings of where I would come from on a reconciliation perspective, because again, by keeping us divided, we're divided, and it's just going to be a constant fight and an us and them sort of mentality. And I truly, truly, truly believe in my heart of hearts that the sooner we can all come together and all be one nation, proud Canadians, that is where the rubber will meet the road and Canada will surge forward and get back to the amazingness that it was 10, 11 years ago. That's my thoughts. Love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.